And now, the woman we all are eager to hear from. Without further ado, it is my great pleasure to welcome the Speaker of the House, Nancy Pelosi, here with the aforementioned Jeffrey Goldberg. Thank you.
That was for the mainstream media, right? The standing ovation. Madam Speaker, thank you very much for joining us.
Don't tell anyone I'm here. I'm in hiding right now.
This is a conversation just between us,
okay.
So you can say whatever you need to say. Thank you all very much for coming. I would note that it's not every day that Yo-Yo Ma opens up for the Speaker, so you should.
How about Yo-Yo Ma and Chris? Weren't they great?
Madam Speaker, I want to talk about a lot of things with you today, including such issues as consumer drug pricing. But there's a couple of issues that we probably should get to before we do that. So we're in a strange and unprecedented situation in this country. We have a president who apparently or evidently reached out to a foreign leader to ask that foreign leader to investigate one of his domestic political rivals, which is another way of saying that is the President of the United States asked a foreign government to interfere in an election and possibly subordinated American national security interests to his own personal needs and desires. My question to you is that an impeachable offense?
Well, first let me say how pleased I am to be here this afternoon. It's a busy day, and to be the program opening with the arts is something I was very excited about because when I get to your question,
I'm just here, so it's fine.
The fact is that I've tried to avoid the situation that we're in now because I thought it was very divisive for the country. This administration has done irreparable damage to our, not irreparable, let's hope it's reparable, but it is, we must repair and we must heal. And for me, relating that to Yo-Yo and Chris, it is about the arts. I always believe that the arts would bring us together. When we can come together, listen, be inspired, laugh, cry, just enjoy and put our differences aside, that's a very positive thing. And when we hear the battle hymn of the Republic, it arouses such emotion in all of us that we are united. So I thank Atlantic Monthly for what used to be called the Atlantic Monthly when I was in high school, so I call it the Atlantic Monthly, the Atlantic for recognizing the role that music and the arts play in our lives. And I do believe that that is a path that can unify us one way. You asked about what? Let me just say that last Tuesday, September 17th, was Constitution Day. It was the anniversary of that day when Benjamin Franklin came out of Independence Hall and people said, Dr. Franklin, what do we have, a monarchy or a republic? He said, a republic if we can keep it. A republic if we can keep it. On that very day last week, that Tuesday, erupted this remarkable set of facts on Constitution Day. And it was about the IG, the Inspector General, at the Office of the Director of National Intelligence saying that there was a whistleblower complaint. And then we learned that it was going to be blocked from being presented and that the DNI was not going to allow it to come forward. So let me just say this. I am more experienced in intelligence than anybody in the Congress. At least 25 years. I was a member of the committee. I was the top Democrat. I was the Adam Schiff. We didn't have the majority, so I was the ranking member. But that made me a member of the Gang of Four years ago, and then ex officio as leader and as speaker. So I have been there for the writing of the laws that regard whistleblowers and further protections for them along the way. I was there to be part of writing the bill to establish the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. That's only since 2004. We didn't have it since then. And that office has its own Inspector General. This Inspector General was appointed by President Trump, important difference, by President Trump, an appointee. The Inspector General are greatly respected for their independence, their objectivity, and the rest. And by law, when a complaint comes from a whistleblower, the Inspector General has 14 days to investigate, and then the Director of National Intelligence has 7 days to report it to the intelligence committees of the Congress. That is the law. It says shall. It doesn't say may, should. It says shall. And that's a very fraught with meaning word in legislation. But this administration is blocking the DNI from conveying that to the intelligence committees. The DNI is at the present time breaking the law at the direction of the administration. It's really unfortunate. So to the substance of we don't know.
Well, we sort of do. I mean, the president has, in so many words, said that he's raised these questions with the Ukrainians, and he's in effect admitted that he's intervened on the quote-unquote Biden issue.
Well, and he has referenced that, and if that is the case, that the President of the United States would ask a foreign government to assist him in a political way, that would be wrong.
Would it be impeachable?
Let me just say that everything we've been doing up until now is about preserving that republic, that Benjamin Franklin said, a republic if we can keep it. And and that means it's not a monarchy. And we have a system of checks and balances in our Constitution. 3 co-equal branches of government to be a check on each other. And that is a republic, is a democracy. It is not a monarchy. The president has said, Article 2 says I can do whatever I want. That is in violation of the spirit of the Constitution. Now, our founders wanted to provide for, shall we say, some activities that they might not themselves engage in, and they put up guardrails. But they never could suspect that a president of the United States would jump over those guardrails.
I want to widen out the aperture in a minute and talk about the whole of this presidency, but let me just stay on this for a minute. If what we're describing is accurate, and if it's not impeachable, if you're not willing to say that it's an impeachable offense, what is impeachable to you?
Well, let me just say that I'll be making an announcement at 5 o'clock today, not here right now, and that...
By the way, you're more than welcome to make it right now.
It's really sad to think that our president would perform an impeachable offense. It's hard. It's hard to say we've gotten to that place. But what would be an impeachable offense would be that which is proven in an investigation.
Right,
and we have to have an investigation.
Calling for, convening a select committee on an impeachment is the beginning of a process, the beginning of a discovery process, not the end. So you don't have to have enough proof to convict at the outset of the process. So my question, I guess, is...
Well, you said, is it an impeachable offense? And that is a verdict.
Given what we know and given what the president has said, I mean, the analogy here is crude, but we seem to be in a situation at the moment in which Richard Nixon, after the Watergate break-in, said something akin to, yeah, I broke into the Watergate. I needed to see what the DNC knew. Donald Trump says out loud what most people say to themselves. And so I'm not going to belabor this forever, but...
No, I think you are.
No.
No, but and let me just say, in terms of the Nixon analogy, the president is making lawlessness a virtue in our country. And that call, he sort of is trying to exploit it. So understand that. So we have several concerns about the president in terms of our differences in policy, and I'd love to tell you about all the legislation we have passed that we're hoping the Senate will take up. Starting with gun violence, tomorrow we have a big Wear Black tomorrow, gun violence activities on Capitol Hill and beyond and around the country. So we have some differences in terms of policy. You might want to know the president called me this morning about gun violence. He said that we were getting close to a solution.
Open parenthetical, what is that call like on a day like today?
Somebody said to me last night, they said, give us a surreal moment about the president and your conversations with him. I said, it's more like it's always surreal. Give you a normal moment.
Was this a relatively normal call?
Yeah, well, he called to talk about gun violence, and then it segued into other things.
Can you give us an indication of what those other things are?
Not right now. But I was concerned, just in terms of being global, that the president said, I have to get off the phone now because I'm going to go speak at the United Nations. And it's great. Everything's great here. It's great. So I didn't have a chance to listen to his speech. I was too busy so that I could have time to come here. But he said that he called upon the countries to reject globalism and embrace nationalism. Really? Really? So again, we have some serious policy differences, and in terms of multilateralism and who we are as a country. I'll tell you a story about me. When I was a young girl, I was a student, and I went to President Kennedy's inauguration. It was freezing cold. It was so fabulous. It's much smaller on the east side of the Capitol, not the west side of the Capitol. I was a student at the time. And everybody in the world, and all of you are too young, but you read it in the history books, knows that President Kennedy said to the citizens of America, ask not what America can do for you, but what you can do for your country, right? Everybody knows that? The very next sentence in the speech is what struck me, because I'm a student of political science and international relations. The very next sentence, he said, to the citizens of the world, ask not what America can do for you, but what we can do working together for the freedom of mankind. Freedom. Freedom. But the part that really stuck with me was the working together. No condescension, was working together. Not what we do for you, but what we do together. And that multilateralism has been a source of our strength. So when I see the president's call for rejecting globalism and embracing nationalism, when I see him questioning our involvement in Article 5 of NATO and the rest, and I see his actions vis-a-vis Afghanistan, we went in together, multilaterally, but he's coming out unilaterally, then you see why there's some cause for questioning among some of our allies.
There's
Did I
a
change
bit
the
of
subject sufficiently?
that was. Beforehand, she said she only wanted to discuss the cello, actually, so this is already a victory. But there is, according to what we're getting on the screen, there's a little bit of what you might call now a breaking tweet from the president, who says that tomorrow they will release a transcript of the Zelensky call. Yeah. So my question to you is, if you see that transcript and it is more benign than we've been led to believe, do you think that your caucus might stand down a little bit? No. Or do you think that the caucus is at a boil right now? I mean, you're going to find out in the next couple of hours.
No, it's not about that. This is about the Constitution of the United States. And we have many other, shall we say, candidates for impeachable offense in terms of the Constitution of the United States. But this one is the most understandable by the public. And it's really important to know this. There is no requirement there be a quid pro quo in the conversation. If the president brings up, he wants them to investigate something, that's of his political opponent. That is self-evident. that it is not right. We don't ask foreign governments to help us in our elections. That's what we try to stop with Russia. It's wrong. So it's not only about how we make decisions about our foreign policy and our global security, it's about undermining the integrity of our election, A. B, I don't think there's I don't think there's a grasp on the part of this administration that the quid pro quo is not essential to an impeachable offense. But if you have sequencing, like a couple of days before, the president withdrew the bipartisan support for Ukraine, bipartisan enthusiastic support for Ukraine. A few days earlier, he withdraws it, then makes this statement. President's words weigh tons, and just bringing up the election is bad enough. That there would be a quid pro quo isn't necessarily in the conversation, but in the sequencing. So this is not a good thing for a democracy, for the leader of the free world to be talking like that. And I don't even know if there are any scruples involved. That's why I say they think lawlessness is a virtue, and now they want to export it to another country.
If I may, it sounds as if you believe that this is a very, very serious offense.
Now, let's just put it this way. I accepted this invitation a while back.
I'm just noting as an observer of this conversation.
I come every year, right?
More or less.
When I'm invited, I come when I'm invited, because since I was in high school, I read the Atlantic Monthly, and they always taught us if you want to know how to write, you have to read good writing. Let's hear it for the Atlantic.
You are.
So.
You are incredibly manipulative, by the way.
Some people say that. Therefore, what would you be asking me if it weren't today? Let's go back when we were happily observing the anniversary of our Constitution last Tuesday morning.
Yes, but the issue is that I live in the time-space continuum, and we are here on a crucial day, and in all seriousness, in American history. And we could lift up beyond the question of impeachment, if you want, by talking about lawlessness for a moment, and we were talking about this a little bit backstage. Do you think the president understands right from wrong? No, it's a very serious question. Do you think he has the capacity to understand that he might... Remember, if this phone call happened as we think, just using the phone call as an example, that it happened the day after Mueller testified.
Yes.
Like, there's some object lessons in the whole Mueller case for a president about talking to foreign powers about intervention in elections. Do you think that, and you probably have a dozen or 24 other examples where you're not sure if the president's moral compass is true north? I mean, do you think, based on your now significant 2.5-year plus exposure to him, that he understands right from wrong in the way that other politicians...
2 years and 9 months.
2 years and...
I'm counting, it's 13 and a half months until let me say that the president is responsible for his actions. Whether he has any scruples or understands right from wrong, he certainly has made some decisions that would call that into question. Yeah. Here we are. I mean, again, as I said, our founders wanted to protect a republic. They did not want a monarchy. And again, they established a constitution that would prevent that from happening. Guardrails. They didn't suspect that everyone would be exemplary, so they had guardrails, and they could not have expected that people would leapfrog over them. Nor, when we were writing the bills on the Director of National Intelligence's responsibility, shall, do we ever think that the Director of National Intelligence would break the law? So yeah, I mean, it isn't a question right from wrong. It's legal or not legal, and in some cases, right from wrong. I think we should start our healing process because it's going to take a while. So let's be thinking in a positive way as we go forward. 13 and a half months. Now it's like 13 and a third months. And because it's going to take some positive repair in addition to natural healing for us to get to a place. And it's absolutely, absolutely essential that the president be held accountable. No one is above the law. And separate from the issues, the concerns we're talking about here, that on the policy that we have a clear discussion about whose vision for America is the one we want to go down, and that it's absolutely essential that he not be reelected President of the United States.
Well, you are focused like a laser on this 13 and a half month number.
Yeah, 13 and a half.
13 and a half
Every
months.
day, yeah.
You're focused on that. You are a very smart political player and very adept at strategy and tactics. The question is, do you understand, putting issues of constitutionality aside and law breaking aside, do you see peril in going down the path that now 2/3 of your caucus wants to go down? I mean, is that what we're talking about? Are we talking about a political calculation that impeachment process will turn President Trump into a martyr and will activate his base even more? I mean,
But look, I don't think politics has anything to do with this, although I read in some metropolitan journals that it's all about politics. It has nothing to do with politics or partisanship. This is about patriotism. Though what's sad about it is that the Republicans have not spoken up about any of this. And I would invite them to join us. Now that we have gotten to this different place, use any metaphor, crossing the Rubicon, Aliyah Yakta, yes, the new territory, new day is dawn, anything you want to say. This is a very serious, in a class of its own, discussion that we're having about the conduct of the President of the United States. So this isn't about politics. If we have to honor our oath of office to support and defend the Constitution of the United States from all enemies, foreign and domestic, that's what we'll have to do. But we have to have the facts. That's why I've said to people, as soon as we have the facts, we're ready. Now we have the facts, we're ready for later today. But, but so this isn't about politics. And you know, people say, oh, you're just trying to protect your members. No, I have absolute certainty, because we're going to make sure it happens, that we will retain the majority in the House of Representatives. What's more serious is that he can't win. That is very serious to our country, to us as America. What is America? America is our Constitution with our system of checks and balances, a republic, freedom of expression, freedom of the press, the guardian of our democracy, the press. That's one, that's America. What is America? Our people. But unless you're blessed to be a Native American, which is a blessing to you and to all who know you, we are a nation of immigrants. Don't take it from me, take it from Ronald Reagan. You've seen Ronald Reagan's, this is the last speech I will make as President of the United States. The last speech, does that get your attention? Ronald Reagan, the last speech as President, and I want to communicate a message to a country I love. And in essence, look it up on Google, it's so beautiful, or wherever you look things up. It's so beautiful. The vital force of America's preeminence in the world is every new generation of immigrants who come to America. And when America fails to recognize that, America will fail to be preeminent in the world. We cannot close the door to the vitality of our future Ronald Reagan. It's better than, it's more poetic than that. It's longer, too. So our Constitution, our people, our land, from sea to shining sea, this beautiful patrimony and beyond, God's gift to us, he degrades, he says, I'm not making any environmental decisions based on science. Oh, really? Oh, really? So dishonor the Constitution, denigrate who we are as a people, degrade the environment, and devalue our values as who we are as America, the idea of America. So this is another shall we say, arena for us to have our discussion on the behavior of this President of the United States. But I really didn't come here to talk about him. Did you? You did, I guess, huh?
Let's talk
Let
about...
me tell you about my caucus. In light of the questions, they have been so fabulous, so thoughtful, so patriotic. I couldn't be prouder of them. And our chairmen have been magnificent.
Well, there is a suggestion in what you term metropolitan journals that Jerry Nadler and you are not seeing eye to eye on these questions. That you're not seeing eye to eye with a large number of people on that. So my broader question about the caucus
That's not true.
My broader question about the caucus.
It may be true that that's what they're saying, but it's not true.
It is definitely true that they're saying.
Yeah, yeah. We have to make that distinction.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
The question about the caucus is, I'm wondering, since you're focused on 13 and a half months out, if you're worried that
13 and 1/3 out.
We've been up here for that long, you think? Is it really? The question is, are you worried? I mean, this puts you in you're in an unlikely spot sometimes. You're a, quote, San Francisco Democrat. You're excoriated on the right for being an avatar of liberalism. And yet, you've had incidents throughout the last year where people in your caucus, not only the squad, the so-called squad, have questioned your liberal or left-leaning bona fides. And so I want to ask you this question about the party and make believe that we're not talking about impeachment for a second, just other issues, including decriminalization of border crossing, Medicare for all. Are you worried as you go forward toward the election that the party is being pulled too far to the left to reach those people in places like Wisconsin that you need to achieve your #1 goal?
Well, let me just say that the Republicans had 137,000 ads, not dollars, ads, in this last election, last year, describing me as a San Francisco liberal, which I proudly am. And left-wing San Francisco liberal sometimes. So that didn't work for them. We were in the most gerrymandered, voter-suppressed political arena that you could ever imagine. And yet we won a net gain of 40 seats to win the House of Representatives. So that plan didn't work for them. But we had a message where we had our common ground. See, our caucus is beautifully diverse. We're as diverse as it comes in ideas, gender, generation, gender identity, geography, ethnicity, you name it. And I say to them, our diversity is our strength. Our unity is our power. And our unity centers around our commitment to America's working families. Whatever people think about this, that, and the other thing, our commitment is to America's working families. That's who we are as Democrats. So we built by consensus a caucus that is 60% women, people of color, LGBTQ. Isn't that fabulous? It's remarkable. There are it's an applause line, it's okay. There are 116 women in the Congress. This is the first time we've gone over 100. 91 of them are Democrats because we made a decision that we were going to be diverse and inclusive in the rest. So it's a pretty exciting, diverse caucus. And as far as some of the ideas that people are putting forth, I respect that. I've said to them, frankly, you know what you're talking about? I have those signs in my basement from 30 years ago. So, I respect that. But we have to win, and let's find our consensus and our common ground as we go forward to win, increase our number, have our Democratic majority in the House, but be so strong in how we do it that we will also win the Senate, the governorships, the state legislative records, and elect a Democratic president of the United States.
I promised you we would talk about prescription drugs.
Prescription drugs.
Let's talk about prescription drugs and talk about not only the plan, but the chances of getting this plan through. And if you want to bring the name Mitch McConnell into the conversation, please do, because I'm trying to understand how you can get anything done in the way Washington is right now.
Well, I'd like to refer to the leader in the way that he describes himself, the Grim Reaper. That's how he describes himself. Right. Okay, here we are, because we only have just a short time left. In a campaign last year, we had a simple agenda. For the people, we will lower healthcare costs by lowering the cost of prescription drugs and retaining the pre-existing condition benefit. Lower healthcare costs, bigger paychecks by building the infrastructure of America in a green way. And third, cleaner government by reducing the role of big dark money in politics and other ways to enhance voter participation, including passing the Voting Rights Act. I think we can get some cooperation from the administration on lowering prescription drug costs. I think even in building infrastructure, cleaner government, no. I don't see that happening there. But on prescription drugs, we have a plan that goes forward that it is based on principles that I think they could share. You know, it's quite remarkable. It's transformative. And you should have asked me that earlier, because our time is up now.
You can go over. You're the Speaker of the House. It's fine. Take another minute if you need it.
I understand that, but my chairmen are waiting. The point is that what it does is to say, when we won in 06, now I just want to make this point. When we won in 06 and we won in 18, those were years where the congressional Democrats led the way. It wasn't a presidential year where we had to go with the presidential, however excellent that is. This was our year. And 06, we had 6 for 06, a new direction for America. 5 of those 6 became law, except one, enabling the Secretary of Health and Human Services to negotiate for lower prices. So we've been fighting that fight for a long time. And so now our proposal is, the negotiation is essential to it. The negotiating for lower prices. In that time, we had lower prices, negotiate for lower prices for Medicare. In this proposal, it's for Medicare and everyone else as well. And so that is one of the principles involved in it. It also addresses the disparity in pricing from here and overseas with a formula that I could discuss with you, but I'll send it to you if you want it. But it's that we cannot be paying. Well, here's what it is. We have 6 countries. We have Japan, Australia, Canada, UK, France, and Germany are kind of similar in terms of economies. And so we take the average or the mean. We're still debating what that is, and that's up to the committees of jurisdiction. The average, let's say for the moment, of what they pay. And we don't pay any more than 1.2%, 100% of that, so 120% of that. So we would only pay up to 20% more than they're paying in all those other countries. Those are 2 of the main features that people ask about. There are other provisions in there that are, they're like we will take the most expensive drugs that affect the most people and try to take them down, the prices down first. I'm very excited about it. It's transformative. The committees will act upon them. They'll have some other suggestions about all the money we save doing this. How do we spend it? Is it better benefits for Medicare, visual, hearing, dental? What would that be? That's up to the committee to decide. There are provisions on transparency. If they want to raise a price, let's tell us why, and let's see what that is. So it's a very lively, informed discussion of people who've been caring about this for a long time. And one of the most important parts of it is, of course, what it means first and foremost in people's lives. I have seen on the campaign trail grown men cry over the cost of prescription drugs, that they can't really provide it for their families, or they have to make substitutions about food, rent, drugs. It shouldn't be that way in our country. This has to be done. It was a big issue in the last election. It will be a big issue in this election. We would rather have the problem solved than have an issue for the election. But it's exciting, and it'll be our lively debate that we have in the Democratic Party, because that's who we are as Democrats.
Madam Speaker, Abraham Lincoln was a subscriber to the Atlantic.
Wow.
Ronald Reagan was a subscriber. Barack Obama is a subscriber. And we're very pleased that you are also a subscriber to the Atlantic.
I'm probably a subscriber longer than any of them. Since high school. But let me just say, since you mentioned Lincoln, and people ask me all the time, how are you ever going to persuade the president of anything? As I leave, I'll just quote Abraham Lincoln. Public sentiment is everything. With it, you can accomplish almost anything. Without it, practically nothing. And so in order for public sentiment to weigh in, the public has to know. So I thank our friends in the press for the role they play in letting the public know how public policy affects their lives. So here I have quoted 2 Republican presidents.
Thank you, Speaker Pelosi.